Hey everyone, this is a replay of myself playing the Tier 7 Tech Tree USN Destroyer Mahan. I'm playing in a 5-ship division with people from Operations Group. Now, whether this is something you want to try yourself with an organized group or not is something for you to decide. I've talked in other replays about destroyers in Narai, talking about the best one, most flexible one being the Leningrad, the probably least optimal one being the Shiratsuyu, with everything else falling in between. The Mahan, unfortunately, is pretty mediocre, possibly a little less than mediocre in the middle, as there are a few things I'm going to point out which can be slightly problematic for this destroyer. First and most obvious is, well, the gun arcs, as USN destroyers have very slow shell speed, making it a little harder to hit things. Not so much trouble necessarily in Narai, as a lot of things you are shooting at short distances, but you still need to use a lot more lead than, say, a Leningrad, for example. Second, the speed is very average for this tier of destroyer. Now, take note what I did there. If you were to do this yourself, you would be using the torpedo guide firing on and half off the backside of the torpedo guide, as with the constant changes in Narai, the Iron Duke does not speed up anymore, but instead slows down at the very start. And obviously, with such short range, you can still citadel the Emerald. Now back to the Mahan. You have very mediocre speed, and also that makes it a lot less able to flex around the map like a Leningrad or a Minsk can. That's another not necessarily a problem, but it just creates less ability to influence the battle. And then, as you saw on the torpedoes, I did sink the Iron Duke, but it took 4 torpedoes, and, well, the torpedoes on the Mahan are about 11,000 in damage, compared to a Leningrad, which is 14,000. A Leningrad can sink the Missouri with its 2 torpedo groups on it. The Mahan, using 2 torpedoes on one side, because it has a third on the other side, which it can't really use when rushing the Missouri, cannot sink the Missouri from full health like the Leningrad can. So, in terms of fulfilling the role of sinking the Missouri outright, you need to have someone else in your group damage it first. Now, strengths of the Mahan, obviously you have the USN Smoke, but whether it gives you that much of an advantage is another question, as in Narai, when you're playing a destroyer, you're not really sitting in smoke for a vast majority of the game. As you saw there, my teammates sank the Emil, Emerald, and Dallas really quickly, so I was able to simply rush the Missouri. And something I found when regrinding through the Mahan is the Missouri, if it's actually paying attention to you, a destroyer with speed like the Leningrad or Minsk or say Muskowica, the Missouri cannot track you with its turrets if you're faster, but Mahan is not nearly fast enough to be to avoid being tracked, and I have been fired on by the Missouri multiple times. So that's something you might want to keep in mind. In terms of detection, compared to Leningrad, 6.7 after the buffs is nearly identical. And that's a pretty standard detection for gunboats in this tier. Now there's one advantage on the torpedoes for the Mahan, which is the torpedo range sorry, is 9.2 kilometers versus your 8 kilometer torpedoes with the Leningrad. How much that helps you is up to you to decide. Now, if I had gone normal route for these later versions of Narai, I wouldn't have been able to get up here to torpedo Lexington nearly as easily. And you'll see there, the torpedoes are so low damage that 3 hits left Lexington still at half health, which would not nearly be the situation with a Leningrad. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about changes in version 3.2 and now version 3.3 as I call it. 3.2, there's been a few changes, like for example the pathing of the Breton, which you will see momentarily. It used to go around the north side of the island in H10 as of the version before that. Now, instead of going around the island, it goes and beaches itself. And I already mentioned the Iron Duke, obviously slowing down at the beginning. Now and also the transports in 3.2. 3.2 started rushing the enemy, specifically assault ship number 3 here, and the lead transport sometimes, which obviously causes issues in retaining the 1400 troops star and defending the lead transport ships. In 3.2 and 3.3, you really have to be pushing in before transports. Otherwise, you run the risk of losing these stars. Now you'll see here, the Breton, if you look at the mini-map, is reaching itself into the island, which it started doing as of 3.2. And then on the next wave, if you don't sink the Breton too quickly, the Gallant tends to crash itself into the Breton, and that causes it to slow down and delay its movement around the island. Now, if you remember, I mentioned the third torpedo set on the other side of the Mahan. In this stage, while you have 3 sets of torpedoes, you can't really take advantage of them until you're rushing. Now watch here. See there, the Gallant is putting itself stuck behind the Breton, whereas before it had no issue just going around it, around the island. That's a change as of 3.3. And then one change that came as of version 3.2, this last wave, the Atlanta in 3.2 no longer went west of the island in the 9 column in rows J, I, and H. Instead, it comes onto this side. Whether all these changes are due to AI behavior, just in general, or Wargaming is purposely tweaking bot behavior in Narai, is as of yet undetermined. Here I'm simply charging to try and maximize my damage. Obviously, I'm not going to get sunk. I did fairly decent for a Mahan. 212,000 damage. Nothing spectacular. You can easily get a lot more damage in other destroyers. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts on whether you actually try to use the Mahan. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.